Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to preview the 2024 US Open women's semifinal matches. And before I start with my preview, I want to say that this has been one of the most exciting women's tournaments because we have two Americans in the semifinals. And their opponents are super exciting because Sabalenka, to me, is the favorite to win the title. She has been the best hardcourt player this year. And Karolina Muchova is back in form, one of the most exciting players to watch because of the versatility in her game. Now, I had a feeling before the tournament started that Pegula was going to make the semifinal and beat Iga Swiatek. It's just Pegula's time to shine. She had played really well in those lead-up tournaments prior to the US Open. And Iga, on the other hand, is suffering from a lack of confidence. And I'm seeing things on the internet that remind me of Nadal, quite frankly. And the thing with Nadal is that some people believe that he's only good on clay. And now Iga is getting some of this criticism too. And this could not be further from the truth. There's a thing going around on the internet that Iga has not been in a semifinal of a slam since winning the US Open in 2022. And to me, that is absolutely irrelevant. Why? Because Iga on hardcourt won the WTA finals and beat Pegula in the final 0-1. She also won Doha and Indian Wells this year on hardcourt. So you cannot call Iga a clay court specialist. Iga is a phenomenal player on clay and on hardcourt. The only surface where there's a discrepancy in her results is grass, where she's never been past the quarters at Wimbledon and never won a title. But I think with Iga, listen, it doesn't happen very often where somebody blazes through the entire year. This is true even for players like Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. It's normal to have ups and downs. And yes, Iga played incredible at the French Open, but after the French, she took a little break, went to Wimbledon where she did not play well. And then interestingly, she ended up losing on clay at Roland Garros at the Olympics, which was a big surprise and probably put a dink in her confidence. And her results since then have not been up to her level. But I'm sure that she's going to put the pieces back together and do well for the rest of the year. Now, one stroke that let Iga down in the loss against Pegula was her serve. And I don't understand why she's still serving with this peculiar service motion. I made a video about Iga's serve changes earlier this year. I recommend that you check this video out. I'm going to link it in a pinned comment. And look, if you want to serve like that as a progression to maybe work on other things such as your toss, no problem. But a progression means that you eventually come out of a progression and go back to your normal serve. It is my belief that Iga's service motion was more rhythmic, more fluid, more continuous prior to the change. Pegula against Muchova is such a tough call to make. I have a feeling that Pegula is going to make the final, but you could also make the argument that Muchova is going to go all the way through. This is going to be a very interesting match. I think that Muchova's versatility is actually going to go in the favor of Pegula because she is one of the cleanest ball strikers on tour. And I think that if Muchova comes to the net a lot, this is going to give Pegula a target and an advantage for Pegula because she's going to be able to hit passing shots and direct balls very low at Muchova's feet. So to me, if Muchova is going to win this match, it's going to come down to her serve and how well she plays from the baseline. Now, I will say that the pressure is probably tremendous on Pegula because this is a golden opportunity for her. Navarro, on the other hand, has a lot less pressure against Sabalenka and she can play freely. Navarro is such a fun player to watch, so versatile. In a way, you can compare her a little bit to Muchova, even though Navarro doesn't come to the net nearly as much. But Navarro has a lot of options on the court, and stylistically, she is a nice player to watch and also a great athlete who moves really well. Will she be able to beat Sabalenka? I have my doubts because Sabalenka, again, has the highest average forehand speed in the US Open. Now, this is including the men. So Sabalenka can blow players off the court. If she keeps her unforced errors count low, she is extremely difficult to beat on the hard court. So my gut feeling is Sabalenka against Pegula in the final. Now, I want to finish this video off with something that I've been thinking about these last few days because I'm seeing a lot of negative comments directed at Pegula and Navarro because they are daughters of billionaires. And look, I understand the resentment that some tennis parents might have when they look at somebody who's super wealthy and can afford coaching, traveling, entry fees with no problem, where some other people have a hard time getting the money together to afford a competitive junior career. Look, I understand the resentment, and I think things can be done to lower costs of junior tennis. For example, the entry fees at junior tournaments are ridiculously high, and that's a story for another video. So the resentment, seeing somebody rich play tennis, is understandable. But I'm going to share my view on rich tennis kids because I have experience. I've been living in Palm Beach County for close to 20 years, and I've been coaching tennis here. When I first moved here, it was primarily high-level juniors, and there are a lot of rich people that live in Palm Beach County, and there are a lot of rich people that have kids who play tennis. And the one thing that I love about the game of tennis is that tennis cannot be bought. And so what a lot of parents do is throw a lot of money into their kids' tennis, and this doesn't guarantee anything. So a lot of parents will build a court at their house or buy a house with a court. They'll hire a private coach. They buy all the tennis equipment that you can ever need. They will travel to any tournament they wish. But all this means nothing, because when it comes down to kids succeeding in the game of tennis, this is something that can't be forced or bought with money, because I've seen it with my own eyes. It doesn't matter if the kid is rich or poor. The kid needs to have an infatuation for the game of tennis. There needs to be a passion for the game of tennis. There has to be a conscientiousness regarding the game of tennis. In other words, a passion combined with hard daily work. That is the only recipe for success. And if those things are not there, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at the situation, nothing's going to happen, not even a Division I scholarship. So yes, Navarro and Pegula might have had some advantages early on regarding coaches, but this does not take away from their infatuation with the game of tennis, doesn't take away from their passion for the game of tennis, and most importantly, it doesn't take away from the hard work that both of them had to put in order to make it to the top of the game. Now, are there situations where a kid has all those attributes, but there's a lack of funds, and ultimately that kid doesn't get to maximize his or her potential? I'm sure there are a lot of examples of that, and efforts should be made to make junior tennis more affordable so that we don't lose the kids that have what it takes to succeed but don't have the funds to finance a competitive junior career. So for you guys that are irked seeing two billionaire daughters traveling the world and playing tennis, let me give you a different perspective of tennis, and maybe I can change your mind. So back in the day, it was the case that when you asked former champions whether they wanted their kids to become professional tennis players, the answer was always no. Now this has changed in recent time, and you do see some kids of former pro players succeed on tour. But have you ever thought why former professional tennis players didn't want their kids to be professional tennis players? Because the life of a professional tennis player is not as glamorous of a life as it seems. Let me try to put it into perspective by comparing it to maybe a match that you might play at a club championship. For example, let's say that you make it into the final and your opponent is somebody that you're slightly better than, somebody that you've beaten a bunch of times before, and maybe it's somebody that you dislike. So it would be a big embarrassment to lose to this person, but you know deep down inside that it's possible to lose to this person because you're only slightly better than that person. So the match is, let's say, tomorrow, and you are already feeling the butterflies. Now, before you go to bed, you're going to think about this match, and when you wake up the next morning, you're going to have this match in your head, and you're going to have an uncomfortable feeling in your stomach. Maybe this feeling will subside once you step on the court, you actually play the match. And now, if you win the match, you're going to feel great. But if you happen to lose this match, you're going to be distraught, and this loss might stay in your head for a day. It might stay in your head for a week. And if it's a really bad loss, maybe a match that you should have won, where you were up by a lot, this match might stay in your mind for a long, long time. And now imagine this pressure and this roller coaster of emotions multiplied by 1,000, where professional players are making a living from winning tennis matches, where they're dealing not only with the pressure of a simple tennis match, but also ranking points, prize money, social media criticism, sponsorship contracts that are dependent on rankings, playing on TV in front of a large audience, playing in stadiums in front of a large audience. This is what tennis players are constantly exposed to, in addition to all the travel and the grueling reality of practicing nonstop and playing long matches that are exhausting, where they're getting injured all the time. And imagine being in this pressure cooker, in this emotional roller coaster ride for 10 years, 20 years. And remember, this emotional roller coaster starts in juniors. So these players are sometimes exposed to this pressure for 20, 30 years. And the vast majority of them do it because they have a deep, burning passion and infatuation with the game of tennis. And they're addicted to chasing the great feeling that we all have when we win an important tennis match. So the fact that Navarro and Pegula have chosen to do tennis and put themselves through a challenging life that has many ups and downs, where they could have easily done something a lot more comfortable, in my opinion, doesn't deserve scorn, but deserves a lot of respect.